and we're live.
Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order at 6:32 and welcome everybody to our Valentine's Day edition of Shelburne Council for Monday, February the 14th, 2022. We'll start off as we always do with playing of the National Anthem, and I would invite everybody who's able to stand and join us. Thank you. We would also like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Chippewa, and the people of the Three Fires Confederacy. Just a reminder to council members that disclosures of pecuniary interest can be made now or throughout the meeting, and that such disclosures are to be made verbally and in writing. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 24th meeting? Moved by Councillor Donato, seconded by Councillor Buffett. Any discussion of those minutes? All in favor? It's carried. Were there any questions submitted for question period, Jennifer?
No, sir, not this evening.
Okay. All right, so we have two proclamations at the beginning of the meeting, and there's one that we'll talk about a little bit later. The first one that we have is for Congenital Heart Defect Awareness Day, and we're joined, as we have been for the last several years, Tyson Cottenberg and Penny Clarkson. It's good to see you both back again. So Tyson, what grade are you in now?
Grade 8.
Grade 8. Wow. High school next year. And Penny?
I'm in grade 2.
Grade 2. Good stuff. All right. So the proclamation for CHD Day reads as follows. Whereas 1 in 70 newborns in Ontario are born with the type of congenital heart defect, CHD, making it the #1 birth defect and cause of death from a birth defect. And whereas there are 35 known types of congenital heart defects, many babies will undergo unimaginable interventions in the first few hours of their lives due to CHD. Now, therefore, I, Wade Mills, on behalf of Council of the Town of Shelburne, do hereby proclaim February 14th, 2022 as Congenital Heart Defects Awareness Day, and encourage everyone to learn more about CHD and what you can do to help. So thank you both for coming back. It's kind of special this year that we're doing the proclamation actually on February 14th. I think that's the first time that it's happened, at least in recent memory. But thank you both for being such strong advocates for CHD and making sure that that the community always remembers it on February 14th each and every year. We look forward to seeing you back here next year.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Okay, so the second proclamation is for Nonprofit Appreciation Week, and we have Michelle Fisher joining us from Dufferin Community Foundation, and I think Michelle is going to give a brief presentation after we read the proclamation. Whereas Bill 9, an act to proclaim every third week of February as Nonprofit Appreciation Week across Ontario, received royal assent in December 2021. And whereas Nonprofit Appreciation Week is an important opportunity to say thank you to a sector that goes above and beyond in supporting vulnerable people and strengthening communities. And whereas the diversity of nonprofit programs, including food banks, housing, mental health, support for seniors and caregivers, child and youth development, sports and recreation, faith, the environment, arts and culture, services for people with disabilities, community health care, counseling, and more, immeasurably enhance our quality of life. And whereas there are more than 150 charities and nonprofit organizations serving families and individuals throughout Dufferin County, including in Shelburne, and whereas the people who work at our community's nonprofits are known for their dedication, skill, compassion, teamwork, and leadership, and have always been there when we've needed them the most. And whereas the nonprofit sector has used innovation and ingenuity to continue programs and keep us connected throughout the pandemic, despite scarce resources. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Wade Mills, on behalf of Council, do hereby proclaim February 14th to the 20th, 2022, to be Nonprofit Week of Appreciation in Shelburne. And I encourage all residents to show their appreciation to the people who work in our communities, charities, and nonprofits. So, Michelle, I will turn it over to you, and you can tell us a little bit more about this.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I will just bring up the presentation. Okay. So as you read in the proclamation, in December, Bill 9 was passed in the Ontario Legislature to proclaim Nonprofit Sector Appreciation Week. And this is the first time there has been a day or a week or anything to let people know in the not-for-profit sector how much we appreciate them. As I've said, it's Valentine's tonight, so it gives us an opportunity to show our love, the fact that it kicked off today. They had at Queen's Park today, they had a virtual ceremony that the Premier and a lot of the ministers were at, but I think it got maybe just slightly eclipsed by some other news events that happened in other parts of the province today, if you happen to miss it. So why celebrate charities and not-for-profits? It's a major contributor to innovation and the economy, which is something that a lot of people don't know. But of course, most importantly, and what we all do know, is that not-for-profits and charities enrich our quality of life. Across the province, we have 58,000 charities and not-for-profits. They employ about 850,000 people. And this contributes about $65 billion to the economy every year. And their work is mission-driven. It really does come from the heart. This is just something that was written in Bill 9. Their work is indispensable and heroic, but it is all too often invisible. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the remarkable contributions of the essential services provided by the nonprofit sector, which relies on funding and volunteers. Their public service deserves to be recognized and honored. So, as has already been mentioned, we have more than 150 charities and not-for-profits serving our communities, several of them in Shelburne. And during the pandemic, they really struggled and successfully found ways to get around restrictions and lockdowns and be there for their clients, and to be able to provide the essential services, food banks, mental health, housing, that had a spike in demand, despite the fact that they really struggled with a lack of resources and oftentimes a lack of staff. Something that you may not know about people who work at charities and not-for-profits is that they are highly skilled as a workforce. And across Canada, they're more highly educated than the rest of the labor force. But despite this, they work for lower pay and they, have long hours and lots of stress. But if you ask most people who work in the sector, they would say that they wouldn't want to work anywhere else. It really is mission driven. They believe in what they do, and it's a labor of love for them. It's a calling. So a few ways that we can show our appreciation this week. One you've already done, check, make an official proclamation. The second, if you'd like, is to post a message on social media or a short video saying thanks, or talking about a story of a not-for-profit in Shelburne or that has helped people saying thanks to them. We're putting these stories under the hashtag Nonprofit Appreciation Week. And we're also going to be sharing nonprofit spotlights on social media. So if you want to follow us at Dufferin Community Foundation on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn, you can see our nonprofit spotlights and engage with them. And finally, you could send a letter of appreciation to your local nonprofits. Those are just a few ideas. Oh, and a few local businesses are giving a free coffee this Friday to anyone who works in a charity or a not-for-profit. So in Shelburne, the Sunrise Diner is going to be giving free coffee to people who work at charities, as is Super Burger. And there are a few in Orangeville as well. And Curry Mantra in Orangeville is giving away a free samosa. So if you know anybody who works at a charity, let them know that so they can go in and get their free coffee. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay,
Well, thank you very much for
Sorry,
having me tonight.
Yeah, thanks. Can we maybe just unshare the screen and then I can see everybody?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay, great. Were there any questions for Michelle? No? Okay. Well, thanks very much. Thanks for taking the lead on this and bringing it to our attention, and certainly would encourage the rest of council to send something out this week on your social media at the least to thank some of our volunteers in the community. So thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye. Okay, next up is council inquiries. Are there any inquiries for this evening? Councilor Venato.
I got a few inquiries, I guess, for Jim. Jim, are you available? Okay. There we go. Fire hydrants, Jim. There's a lot of them buried in the snow. I'm wondering when we're going to clean them up, because I'm a little concerned, especially I know here near my house, it's under about 5 feet of snow and quite a distance from the road. And if there's a fire within the area, I think the firemen would have a hell of a time shoveling it out before they have a chance to even get close to fighting a fire.
Yes, through your worship, we have noticed this. We've had our water staff out with the one backhoe over the last week and a half, digging fire hydrants out. So they're slowly working away on that. We do seem to have some ones that we've unburied a number of times and they keep getting buried in, just snow blowing in and that. So we were going to also do up notification again that put on our website, social media, and actual door knockers, just to make residents aware of the necessity of having those fire hydrants accessible as well.
I guess that sort of leads into the second issue I have, and that goes back to the snow blowing on the sidewalks. And I know when I walk around, and I know there's elderly people walk as well, this weekend especially, the ends of each of the sidewalks were a pile of snow left there because of the plow going through and putting the ends. They were difficult to walk over and get through, as well as we always, as usual, have people who either don't know or better or whatever blowing snow into the sidewalks. But the ends of the sidewalks were more my concern, the fact that there was a pile of snow there. weren't cleared away enough to allow for proper access to the roadway. I know it was a weekend. I know we don't have the full staffing and crew on board, but before, they need to be cleaned a little bit better than what they are. Just to let you know, okay? That's an issue, especially for people trying to get out and walk about. And then the final thing, I'm wondering, are we a little short of manpower or something? Because I noticed that issues even with the utility boxes being cleaned up and ends of sidewalks, it seems like we don't seem to have enough manpower to do all the work that needs to be done.
No, through your worship, we did have one staff member, long-term staff member, resign last year. So we have filled that position with a contract position. So we have got a number of contract people this year again. So some of them are returns and some are new to the position. So they're still being trained yet. We do have our public works supervisor who's following up with maintenance just to make sure that the guys are doing what they can do there and that they don't need some additional guidance with that. So that's ongoing. But no, we do have the normal contingent that we have for staff. We did, starting last Monday, we did bring in a contractor as well, like we do every winter when the snow hits a certain level there with snowbanks at intersections and such, and blew back a bunch of the banks on Main Street and other intersections through town too. So that could be part of the issue with sidewalks, is they were chewing those corners back a little further than they normally do. And we did try and make sure this year with our contractor that he's aware of this, just to watch the boulevard areas. We did have some issues there last year with complaints with a new contractor as well. So,
speaking about the contractor, I want to thank you. I think most of the town should thank you. He did do a good job of blowing back on the roadways and clearing the up.
Any other inquiries? Councillor Buffett.
Yes, I just wanted to bring up a matter relating to the Heritage Committee. It's further on in the communications relating to the mural project. And I just wanted to ask through you to Denise, if you could give us an update on the gazebo in terms of size and when we might have some information about that. Simply because when we were discussing that, we were concerned about with the murals going up on that west wall there, and also having to possibly move either trees or just cut, everybody knows what's happening.
I certainly, sorry, through the mayor, I can certainly follow up with you. The gazebo is in storage because we purchased it. Can you hear me okay? Sorry.
No.
Can you hear me okay?
A bit better.
Okay, so the gazebo is in storage. We can follow up with you in the next day or two, if not tomorrow, with all the dimensions and a visual of it so you can see what it would look like.
Okay, that'd be great. Because if we could get a copy of that for our committee, then we can kind of go from there. Thanks.
When's the next committee meeting?
A few weeks' time.
Okay.
So I think we have time.
Okay, perfect. All right, anybody else? Okay. All right, on to motions and bylaw then. So the first matter is a report from our planner regarding the final approval of Scone developments. And I think Steve is online here with us. Hi, Steve, how you doing?
Good, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Good to be with you. You'll see in the agenda package, I have a fairly detailed report on the final approval requirements and how those requirements have been fulfilled for the Scone plan of subdivision. I won't go through all of the details of the report, as the purpose of documenting much of that information is just to ensure we have a comprehensive record of how the conditions that were established for this draft plan have been fulfilled. I will highlight a few things just in terms of things that have changed somewhat from previous reports. You're aware that the developer is in the process of acquiring a piece of land from the town at the west end of First Avenue. And there were some prior council approvals for that, both to stop and close that small section of the right of way, as well as authorizing it to be declared surplus and to convey it to Scone. So because that process does take some time and is with legal counsel to complete the purchase and sale process, that little part of First Ave and some adjoining land, one of the townhouse blocks, has been isolated to a second phase of registration. So all that means is that the plan will be registered in 2 steps, with the bulk of it being registered initially, and then the second smaller part registered separately after Scone has finished the acquisition of that small piece of land. So the first registration will include 5 of the 6 blocks of townhouses, so 29 of the 33 units, and then the remaining 4 units would be registered after that piece of First Ave is acquired by Scone. So we expect that'll happen in the next 1 to 2 months, and then that second M plan will be ready for registration as well. What we've recommended is that council authorize the clerk to sign both of those plans, but that would occur on the second plan after we have that confirmation from the town's legal counsel that that piece of town-owned property has been acquired by Scone. The only other item that was outstanding, and this applies to both phases of the plan, is we're still working with the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority to get their final clearance letter. The NVCA does require the executed subdivision agreement to issue their clearance. The executed subdivision agreement is in place now and has been provided to the NVCA. I know they're quite busy and backlogged with the amount of reviews they have underway. So that one is just taking a bit more time. So in our recommendation, we've just recommended that the final sign off by the clerk on the plans would occur after we have that clearance letter from the NVCA. All of the other agencies that have clearance conditions on this draft plan have provided their clearance letters, and those clearance letters are attached to my report. I've briefly summarized the financial implications. So beyond this step, the developer can then move forward to pull building permits, and that's when the town will start to receive development charge revenues. And the developers also posted the necessary deposits and securities to ensure that the work is properly constructed, that it's maintained while the housing is being constructed, and also that the costs for the town to review all of that is covered as well. So the construction process is likely to begin in the next several weeks, and then the townhomes will be ultimately built. Once the construction of the townhomes is completed, there will be a process for the developer to register the plan of condominium, which will tie those townhouse units to the common elements in the development. So just as a reminder, again, the unique aspect of this development is that it is on a private condominium road. So that road will be registered under the ownership of the condominium corporation when that's set up. Each of the unit holders will have a shared responsibility for that road and the associated infrastructure, as well as the stormwater pond and the outlet for the stormwater pond and some of the other common areas in the development. And then finally, I'll just note that there is one future development block at the very south end of the development. That's block 7 on the plan. I have had pre-consultation with Kim and Stone Ridge Holdings, the original owner of this site, about some plans to build some additional apartment units and semi-detached dwellings in the south block. So that will come forward later as a separate planning application. It's not related to the current final approval or registration, but just so council's aware, you won't see any development in that first block on Main Street at Gordon Street, other than the access to the stormwater facility, until such time as we have further discussion on what that will look like, and council will get an opportunity to comment on that. So I'll pause there, and if there are any questions, I'm available to answer them. And I see that Rudy and Kim are on the line as well. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Steve. Any questions? Councilor Bernardo?
Steve, do you need any, or do they need any help with the NVCA to get that final clearance letter? Should I make a call maybe up there to the staff and ask them to speed it up?
I think it's in the queue, and we are getting some response from NVCA on a number of files. So I'll follow up with you if we're having any unnecessary delays on that, but I think it's just a matter of a few more days, hopefully, before we see that, and then this can be advanced to registration.
Okay, if there are any issues, please follow up with me, either you or Rudy or Kim or whoever needs to get a hold. I'm quite easy and I can make that phone call up there. No issue at all.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so the lengthy motion is in the agenda package. I'm not going to read it through verbatim, but essentially I'm looking for a motion to receive the report and authorize final approval of the Scone Developments Plan of Subdivision, directing the clerk to sign for municipal approval on both plans pending receipt of the NVCA clearance letter, as well as confirmation that the owner has acquired the land shown as Part 1 on reference plan 7R 6732. Can I get a mover and seconder? Councillor Bernardo, seconded by Councillor Fegan. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? It's carried. Excellent. Okay, thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everyone.
You too.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Rudy.
you.
Thanks, Kim. Okay, next is a report from our CAO regarding the operations review and some good news with respect to the municipal modernization program third intake. So Denise,
Thank
you may have to
Mills.
speak
Okay,
really
so
loudly. I
I'm
don't know
trying
what.
to yell because I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm yelling, so everybody here is going to be, the cats are going to run, the dog's running. So yes, as the mayor just mentioned, it's great news. So this report's going to address the successful grant that we received for the third intake of province's municipal modernization fund. We were also successful, as council knows, in the second intake, which is how we funded our service delivery review. One of the major recommendations among many within our service delivery review, which was completed by a third-party consultant, as that is a condition of the grant, was that we complete an operations review. We had let council know during the budget process, in the budget framework, that we were going to apply and had applied. We had applied for $80,000. We recently received acknowledgement that we're receiving just over $81,000, which is quite good to get a little bit more than you requested. So the scope of the work is very focused on operations with respect to looking at services, processes, functionality, staffing needs, which is a continuation of the staffing assessment that came out of the service delivery review, whereby we had requested a number of positions in the 2022 budget, and council approved 3 of those 4 positions that were requested. This project will be very hands-on with respect to also monitoring and doing analysis of processes within this, the systems and the seasonal operations. So I have provided some of the information that was included in the grant application without going through it in detail. The links, as council will know, to the presentation from Optimus is provided, as were all of the recommendations included in the presentation from November. We did have to remit that presentation and the final report to the province not that long ago in order to fulfill the obligations from that original grant. So we're hoping to get the project commenced in March. It's fairly time sensitive with respect to the ability to complete winter analysis. I think a number of the service areas that will be emerging from the Parks and Recreation Plan will be very well tied to our operational needs. So the province has required that as a condition of this grant, that we would have to have an interim report in September and a final report in January. However, we're also very aware of the current election and the timing. So we were hoping that it would be much more beneficial and strategic to bring a final report to this council in your existing term in September to make sure that anything that's identified is fully vetted and then presented to any members of the new council. The report is recommended similar to the first intake, or sorry, the second intake in the grant, that there's tremendous advantage with respect to Optimus because they not only completed the county's service delivery review, but they completed our service delivery review. While I didn't mention it, certainly we could tender or RFP this. That would probably require us about 3 to 4 months for the entire process to be completed for that, and then would put us a little bit behind or significantly behind in our ability to complete some of the work that we'd want to get started with in mid-March. So this report has got 3 recommendations. One, obviously, to receive. The second is to approve the bylaw and the signing of the agreement with the province of Ontario accepting the grant money. And the third is to assign the project for the up-limit budget of approximately $81,000 to Optimus SBR Inc. and allowing us to commence the project. As noted under the financial, it is fully 100% funded. We had included in the budget that this project was conditional upon funding. We did not provide any funding for it outside of that. So in the absence of this funding, the project would not have been able to go forward this year, and we would have sought other funding sources, whether again in 2022 potentially, or reconsidered what might be available in 2023. So thank you. And through Mayor Mills, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay. Any Councillor Fegan?
Yeah, I'd like to bring something up that I had mentioned last meeting in regards to accessible parking. This grant is absolutely fantastic news, and I'm really excited for this. What I brought up last meeting was in regards to an issue where we had a storefront owner who was trying to clear out the boulevard right in front of her shop that had accessible parking. When I mentioned it last meeting, maybe I wasn't clear enough at the time, but I've had significant conversations with Denise subsequently. And once I was able to make myself a little more clear, she understood where I was coming from. And thank you, Denise. I appreciate the work that you and your staff have done behind the scenes before today in order to look into some of the things that I'm going to bring up here. One of the things I want to talk about is with regards to accessible parking. In the winter times, where we have these parking spaces, typically you're going to be parking and you're going to have your passenger side parked right against the snowbank. If you're a person who needs accessible parking, typically you're not going to be driving yourself and you're going to be in that passenger seat. So you're going to have a driver drive you to wherever you're going to go. You're going to use that accessible parking, and then you're going to have a real difficult time to get out of the car. One of the things that I was discussing with Denise is to see if there's any municipalities who are doing something in regards to clearing out the boulevard, meaning the snowbank between the road and where our sidewalks are cleared, just to make sure that we are maintaining accessibility in these parking spaces. Now, Denise, you can certainly cut me off at any point and correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding in the research that she has undertaken already, there is no municipality that is doing anything for this at this point. So this is another opportunity where we as a municipality could spearhead something that hopefully other municipalities could take on. We could certainly lay the groundwork where we can certainly make our town much more accessible to our constituents. So what I'd like to ask this table is with this review with regards to where this money is being allocated, one of the things I'd like to have looked at is maybe having us do a little bit more in regards to the snow clearing, especially at these accessible parking spaces, just to make sure that even in the winter, accessible parking remains accessible. Denise, if there's anything that I've forgotten in how I've relayed that, please fill us in for further. Oh, you're muted, Denise.
No, I gotta yell again. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So yes, so Councillor Fegan had just asked for some more background following his questions of the last one. I did have a conversation with my colleagues. And while we're certainly putting more emphasis on removing snow at all of the downtown accessible spots and those within the community, the operations review will certainly be very beneficial to evaluate that process and what we would need to do in terms of service standards and what resources would potentially be needed to commit to that. We have contacted a number of other municipalities where the traditional approach is minimum maintenance standards, and then getting to what you need to do with respect to other service areas sometimes doesn't align with that. But I think we all agree as staff colleagues that this is critically important, and this operations review will be a very beneficial way to complete the analysis and come up with processes that would standardize how we deal with those very important parts of parking, and making sure that our community members that require accessibility at all times will be provided with that service.
So part of this analysis will look at scope of work, what we're currently doing, what we could do, not only for accessible parking, but any
Yes.
host of issues, I guess. Okay. What sort of, sorry, go ahead.
But there'll be a best practice analysis too. So we may be doing X and potentially we could be doing Y. And so what we would look at is how do we move the pendulum to get us to a point where it's maybe a higher standard or something that council would like to see provided, and whether there's services impacts, cost impacts, or staffing impacts to ensure that those kinds of, I guess, end results are achieved. So similar to the service delivery review, there'll be a whole series of points that we would provide recommendations and implementation strategies, many of which would probably be related through the 2023 budget for the consideration of council.
And just one more question, then I'll go to Councillor Bonato. What sort of stakeholder engagement will there be as part of this? Like with the service delivery review, council members were interviewed. Will be a similar sort of approach?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that will be very critical. That'll be one of the front end, almost immediate engagements, similar to the SDR, where each member of council will be asked to have a one-on-one with the consulting team to go over anything that you would like to share with respect to the project, and having a huge voice with respect to constituent representation.
Yeah. Okay. So Councillor Fegan, that'll be your opportunity to make the case, at least initially. Okay. Councillor Bonato.
Well, I'm sort of going to follow up on what Councillor Fegan has said, because those initial complaints I made through council inquiry are on the accessibility, especially with sidewalks and with fire hydrants being blocked off and inaccessible. So when we're talking about a higher standard, I think in my case, I know with the consultants is also going to be the first things, because if I was in a wheelchair, there's a lot of sidewalks I couldn't use to get around, or on a scooter. And if my house is burning down and firemen have to dig out the damn fire hydrant so that they can put a hose to it to hose down the fire, I think that's where our service delivery review needs to really focus on some of those items within the town. Those are critical in my mind, and I'll definitely be having that conversation with the consultants.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess for all of us, start making a list now, putting some thoughts together, things that you want to convey to the consultants when the time comes. Anybody else? No. Okay. So as Denise said, basically 3 parts of this motion: receiving the report, authorizing the bylaw, which allows us to enter into the funding agreement with the province, and then awarding the contract to SBR Inc. At an upset limit of $81,408. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Fegan, seconded by Councillor Buffett. All in favor? Carried. Okay, next is just our annual report for council member remuneration. Carrie, do you want to discuss this at all, or it's pretty self-explanatory, the charts there?
Yes, thank you. This is just the annual normal report that we're required to submit through the Municipal Act. And unless council has any questions, there isn't really anything to outline. The chart is fairly self-explanatory.
Do we post that on our website at all, Carrie?
No,
In the past, no.
no.
I mean, there probably, well, I guess there isn't a requirement under the legislation to do so, but I mean,
No, there's just the requirement for council to receive the report. So it is available on our website through the council agenda package.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay. Motion to receive that. Councillor Hall, seconded by Councillor Bernardo. Oh, Denise.
Sorry, Mary Mills. I just wanted to mention that we recently started when the agenda link is public for the council agenda. We have now started putting it on our social media to make sure that the public is seeing that link. So we hope that brings more profiles. So similar to your question, that anybody who was opening and reading the agenda would have seen that report from the treasurer on there.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. So thanks for doing that. It probably makes it much easier for those members of the community who aren't following it as closely as we are. Okay, so we have a motion. All in favor? Carried. All right. Next is a recommendation from the Heritage Committee, and that is to appoint a new member, namely Chantal Richards. Kyle, did you want to speak to that at all?
Okay. I could.
Or Linda, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Kyle was the mover of it, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Chantal Richards is, as you know, one of our members of staff, and we're really excited to have her on our committee because she's very lively and upbeat and really excited about getting in and doing a lot of work with us. So we're really happy to have her.
Good stuff. Okay. Can I get a mover and seconder then to ratify that appointment? Councillor Fegan, seconded by Councillor Buffett. All in favor? Carried. All right. And as I mentioned earlier, when we were in proclamation mode, we did have a third proclamation. This was a new request this year. So the clerk put it on the agenda for approval before we make the official proclamation. But can I get a mover and seconder to proclaim February 22nd as Human Trafficking Awareness Day? Councillor Bernardo, seconded by Councillor Hall. All in favor? That's carried. And with that, I'll read the proclamation. Whereas National Human Trafficking Awareness Day was established on February 22nd, 2007 in the House of Commons to encourage Canadians to raise awareness of the magnitude of modern-day slavery in Canada and abroad and to take steps to combat human trafficking. And whereas between 2009 and 2018, the police reported 1,708 incidents of human trafficking in Canada. And whereas between 2018 to 2019, Dufferin Child Victim Services were made aware of 22 victims of human trafficking, with 7 being youth under the age of 18. And whereas CryNot.ca is a volunteer-driven group comprised of the Rotary Club of Orangeville and Compass Community Church to raise awareness to the concern of human trafficking in the Dufferin-Caledon community. And whereas the mission of CryNot is to reduce and eliminate human trafficking by raising awareness, fostering collaboration among like groups and organizations, equipping adults with connections and resources available to defeat the threat of human trafficking, and to create and maintain digital information. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Wade Mills, do hereby proclaim February 22nd, 2022 as National Human Trafficking Prevention Awareness Day in the town of Shelburne. Okay. Are there any notices of motion for this evening? No. Okay. Communications. There's one item here that I'd like to pull out, but is there anything else that anybody else wants to discuss? No. So number 9 is a letter, a joint letter signed by the mayors of Town of Mono and Town of Caledon to the province with respect to some of the challenges we're currently facing with provincial offences in Dufferin-Caledon. The county council just last Thursday added its support to this letter, and I'd like Shelburne to do the same. So I'll make a motion that we provide I guess we don't need to provide a letter, but just pass a resolution in support of the letter submitted by Mayors Creelman and Thompson. Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Bernardo? Any discussion on it or any questions? All in favor? It's carried. Okay. Last call for communications. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Mills. This is actually regarding the item from the, I actually switched off the number so I can't see it, but this is the letter from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And I know that staff will certainly provide us with more information as this develops. But I bring this up only to say we have a couple of applications, one in particular that's before us for sure. And I'm just wondering how this, if at all, plays a role in sort of the applications that we view in front of us. Now, whether this is something that takes effect at a later date, and so that doesn't impact certainly things that we're looking at now, but I just raised that as to whether, again or not, we should be paying attention to this in light of some of the decisions that we have to make.
Specific.
That's the affordability.
Correct.
Yeah. Denise, do you have any insight onto what impact that initiative is going to have in terms of municipal approvals?
Through the mayor, I did send an email this morning with the full report to all of council and indicated that we were going to have meetings this week with our colleagues to try to provide some review of the impacts. We do know at a high level there would be the expectation that some municipal approvals may be actually reduced at the council level. There may be some expedited processes that affect other agencies as well that are municipally linked. But certainly that has been raised with our teams that it's critical for us to get something back to councils outside of what AMO is doing so that you're fully informed of what the impact of this direction is, with some things still, some elements still being under discussion. So I think our meeting is Wednesday, if not tomorrow, with the regional planners as well as some other colleagues, and we'll certainly bring back information to council as quickly as we can.
Okay.
Is that enough?
Okay, anything else? Can I have a motion then to approve the items listed under communications? Councillor Wagner, seconded by Councillor Buffett. All in favor? That's carried. No closed session. And just before we wrap up, just a reminder that council is going to be hosting a family day skate this coming Monday. What's the date again? Somebody remind me.
21st.
21st at the new skating track at Natasha Patterson Memorial Park, and that will be from 1 until 2 p.m. And we were just talking before the meeting started that hopefully the mild weather that we're expected to have midweek this week won't put a damper on the conditions of the track. But all things going well, we'll be there at 1 o'clock next Monday and hope to see a good turnout. Denise?
Sorry, just to build on what the mayor said, we're encouraging anybody that's able to attend to please also think about families helping families. And if you would be kind enough to bring a non-perishable donated food item for the food bank, that would be wonderful.
Excellent. Okay.
And just quickly as well, any updates on the track condition will be via social media. So if for some reason it's canceled, just pay attention to the website or the Facebook page, and that way you'll stay informed.
All right, good stuff. Okay, can I have a motion then for the reading and enacting of bylaw number 06-2022, confirming bylaw? Councillor Bernardo, seconded by Councillor Hall. All in favor? Carried. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor Hall, seconded by Councillor Bernardo. All in favor? Carried. All right. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Yeah.
Go ahead.